coast of Maine is stunning. It's absolutely gorgeous. This is astounding. Over 90% of the state is forested. The water's fantastic. If you haven't been to the Gulf of Maine, put it on your bucket list. That the islands, even though they're stunningly beautiful, wild, remote, they still were littered with a pretty good deal of garbage, a lot of it plastic. We worked pretty hard hiking, collecting, cataloging, and then removing a whole lot of trash. And sometimes the trash was well up onto the island, which is a testament for what kind of storms they have there. So our first storyteller is Ashley Sullivan. And Ashley is the executive director of the Rosilia Project for a Clean Ocean. Are you ready to rock and roll, Ashley?
I think what I'm going to do, first of all, I want to say thank you, Debbie, for joining us on Clean Sweep, American Promise last year, and for inviting me and some of the crew to come and share our story. This is pretty awesome. You all have heard from Rosalia Project, Rachel, actually, a few times, and so are probably really well, pretty familiar with what we do. So I thought today we'd shake it up a little bit and I would talk a little bit about how I ended up in this job, right? Like what's my story? So I'm gonna start off by just sharing a little bit about my story and kind of how I ended up here in this job that is really a dream job. And then I'll talk a little bit about Rosalia Project. Again, thanks to the National Women's Sailing Association. This is just such an honor. So thanks so much for having me. So my name's Ashley Sullivan. I'm actually 52 years old, but years ago, when I was a young little girl, I grew up on Key Biscayne, which is a small little island that's about 6 miles off the coast of downtown Miami. So if anyone's ever been to Biscayne Bay, you know that it is like a dream world for sailors. And my parents were water people. My dad had a sailboat, so we spent a lot of time sailing, and we had a local yacht club that was right on the island, and started sailing when I was about 8 years old. And by the time I was 10, I had my own little pram. And while I didn't really get the racing bug until later when I met Rachel, and I'll tell you about that, I loved nothing more than riding my bike down to the club, rigging up my boat, putting on an old pair of sneakers, packing a lunch, and like going out on the bay for the day. I'd take a friend, we'd sing songs, we'd sail over to, there was this really awesome sandbar on the southwestern tip of the island, and just dig our centerboard down and find starfish, urchins, sea cucumbers. So really, this is where I first began exploring the sea, falling in love with all of its creatures, and really became kind of the cornerstone of what would become my career, without kind of really knowing it. When I was growing up, my dad was the kind of person that if you took the time to learn how to use something of his, whether it was his nice car or his sailboat, he would actually like let you use it, which is kind of crazy. So by the time I was in college, he had a J30 that he had brought from Biscayne Bay up to Lake Champlain, where my family also is from, here in Vermont, which is actually where I'm tuning in from today. And by the time I was in college, I was actually starting to cruise for the first time on my own on this 30-foot boat. He was like, if you can get it in and out of the mooring and bring it into the gas dock, Lake Champlain is your oyster. So the first kind of cruising I ever did as a young person was really by myself, was really on that boat. And it was right around that time that I actually met Rachel, because there was a few of us that were trying to put together an all-women's J24 sailing team. And this was really the first time that I had ever really competed, number one, but also number two, I did it with all women. And that felt super empowering, to like go out there, because there wasn't really a ton of us doing that at the time. This was in like the mid 90s, actually like 1997 to be exact. And during that time, made some fast friends. Rachel was our helmsperson. I was on the bow. And so we kind of like bookended, had a lot of fun beating boys all over New England and beyond, and forged a really lifelong friendship that came full circle about 25 years later. Hi, Rach. When I left Vermont, actually at the time, Rachel was running the Community Sailing Center in Lake Champlain here in Vermont. I ended up back in Miami, where I was from, and stumbled upon a job working for a really amazing community sailing center called Shake a Leg Miami. And what makes Shake a Leg Miami so unique is that it was a sailing center, it was a community sailing center, but it was founded by a gentleman by the name of Harry Horgan, who, when he was in his young 20s, broke his back. And so he had a spinal cord injury and actually designed one of the first accessible sailboats where people with disabilities could get out on the water. And what he learned was that sailing and boating is really a wonderful tool to learn about yourself, build your own strengths, your own character, forge friendships, build community, find joy out in nature. And so I spent the next 10 years working for this community sailing center, and mostly working with marginalized people, right? Like, so think of inner city youth, people from low socioeconomic backgrounds, people with disabilities that really never had access to the water. And this is really where I really began to see and really understand the kind of vessel that, and I use that metaphorically, that a boat could be for people, right? For self-growth, for forging friendships, but also to learn about our environment. And at that time, I think for me, I was in my mid to late 20s, and any of us that have spent time in, on, and around the water, we will at some point understand deeply the impact that humans are having on our public waterways. And in Miami, huge population area, I worked in Coconut Grove, which was on the west side of the bay, and we were inundated with debris, trash all the time. We were collecting it, disposing of it, but we weren't really solving the problem, because what I came to learn much later when I started working with Rosalia Project is that in order to really find solutions, you need to collect data. So back up a little bit from Rosalia Project, I spent about 10 years working at Shake a Leg, and then I came up to Vermont when I was about 36, and spent the next 8 years working in a family business, had nothing to do with the water. And about 8 years into that experience, I lost my dad. My dad died. And my dad and I were super close. Not only was he my father, but we were also sailing buds. He had a beautiful 44-foot Dufour that we had sailed all over. And it was a pretty tough time for me. I was kind of really trying to just rethink what I wanted to do with my life. Quick, I'll share my screen and take you to kind of what happened next. Okay. Well, just to take you back a little bit, I'll just show you a few pictures of me as a little kid sailing in my water family. This was my dad's boat. I do find it funny, Debbie, that you named this Clean Sweep.
I thought you photoshopped that.
No, that was my dad's boat because he had a cleaning business. So it is kind of funny. So he called his boat Clean Sweep. It was a J30, Biscayne Bay. He was a big racer, did the midwinters, and eventually that boat ended up in Lake Champlain. So you can see way down low, Key Biscayne. That was that was where I grew up. This is Key Biscayne. If anyone has ever sailed in Biscayne Bay, or had the opportunity to sail over to the Bahamas, if you look at the very southern part of the island, is a very famous harbor called No Name Harbor, where people very famously sail and cross over to the Bahamas from there and cross the Gulf Stream. Here's me sailing as a young person. These are a couple pictures of my time at Shake a Leg, working with inner city youth and people with disabilities. And I love this picture because this is my face when I moved to Vermont, and I was like, I'm missing the ocean so much. What can I do? So I went to the local boat swap shop and for $500 got myself this sunfish and sailed around the lake for the next 8 years, but it really didn't quite feel like the ocean. So after my dad passed away, I ended up sailing the boat up to New England, and it ended up on the Hard in Sandy Hook, New Jersey. I was going to try to make a go, see if we could charter it to keep it in the family, but it really wasn't working. So about 8 months later, I had a cousin who bought the boat and called me up and said, Ashley, I'm going to buy your dad's boat, but I live in San Francisco and I need someone that can sail this boat to San Francisco. So I took the trip of a lifetime, leaving October 1st, 2016, and sailed from Sandy Hook, New Jersey, all the way through the Panama Canal. Took about 8 months, 7,000 miles, and sailed to San Francisco. It was an incredible, incredible journey. Here's a picture of me coming through the Panama Canal. There were so many things to think about during this trip that this was one thing that kind of caught me by surprise. I found myself in the middle of this canal thinking, this is the most marvelous place I've ever been. And this picture I just absolutely love because it was the day that we finally made it through the Golden Gate Bridge. And as luck would have it, the wind was just such that we were able to just barely carry the chute through. So that was pretty special. But while I was on this journey, my friend Rachel Miller was like, what are you going to do next? And I really had no idea. And she said, well, would you like to come and be one of the captains of American Promise and be the executive director of Rosalia Project? And I thought, my goodness, a chance to work with Rachel and a chance to sail a 60-foot boat and sail around the Gulf of Maine and pick up trash. That sounds amazing. And so I signed on to this incredible organization that is working to clean and protect the ocean and conserve a healthy, thriving marine ecosystem. And we are doing that by tackling one of the ocean's greatest threats, which is the problem of marine debris. And we get to do it from this amazing boat. And her name is American Promise. She was built by Ted Hood for a gentleman by the name of Dodge Morgan. She's about to have her 40th birthday coming up. And she was built for Dodge Morgan for the sole purpose of him wanting to be the first American to challenge the solo circumnavigation world record and sail around the world on this boat. And he did that and broke the world record. The boat then was a sail training vessel for the Navy for several decades, and we are the third owner, the third very, very proud owner. And she's really uniquely positioned to do the work that we do with marine debris. And as an organization in the Gulf of Maine, we kind of are targeting, well, actually, and globally, really targeting 3 specific areas. So to the right or to the left, we've got derelict fishing gear, which in the Gulf of Maine, we actually have a huge fishing industry, the lobster industry, which actually produces quite a bit of gear loss. Consumer debris, which are things that you and I use every day. And we also work on microplastics. Now, as an organization, this is a pretty big problem. And so we're tackling it using a couple different strategies. So we do education and outreach programs. We do data cleanups. So over the past 15 years, this organization has recorded, collected, and cataloged over 1 million pieces of debris. And that debris, or that information, I should say, and that data really helps drive our understanding of the problem and drive solutions. So the data cleanups are really important. We also do science research and expedition science on board our vessel. And most of that has been around microplastics and microfiber pollution. And then as an organization, really embracing innovation, right? And redesign as a way of solving this problem. We know that technology and innovation can be one of the solutions to the marine debris issue. right now, when Debbie joined us last year, she was a part of, and we are a part of, what is called the New England Gear Team. And this is a collaboration of organizations, nonprofit organizations that are working in the Gulf of Maine with funding from the NOAA Marine Debris Program to target derelict fishing gear removal. Rosalia Project has a really unique role in this because we are the only organization that is using a sailing vessel to target remote islands. There's lots of people doing beach cleanups and collecting gear using divers, underwater gear balls, but targeting remote islands is a unique thing that Rosalia Project and American Promise are doing. This is the crew that joined us, and I love to share this picture because you can see it's a bunch of women, and well, really people, including Jake, our captain last summer, of all ages and all walks of life. Irene in the middle holding the shell. She is a 17-year-old ocean engineer from Spain, Barcelona, who joined us. Debbie and her background. So people just from, all over with a bunch of different skills, and you're going to hear from Nicole next, and kind of her story of how she came here. This is just a little bit about just a kind of visual of some of the gear that we're finding in the Gulf of Maine. So a lot of metal, recycled traps that we're actually able to recycle, a ton of foam. And, it's pretty hard work, but there's actually quite a bit of joy to be found from, cleaning up a huge cove that's just littered with debris, and spending, 6 hours with a team of people, and then knowing at the end that it's clean, and you're able to dispose of it. This is just another little video. And this is just a map of the Gulf of Maine right now that shows you in yellow the islands, actually in blue, the islands that we targeted in 2023, and in yellow are the islands that we again not only added on to. So we went back to the islands that we went to in 2023, and also visited some new islands too. And what I want to leave everyone with is that, if you're on this Zoom right now, it is most likely you're a sailor, right? And you have found a way to make sailing a part of your life. But what I want to challenge all of us to think about is, what other skills and passions do we have that we can bring to our sailing lives? Dodge Morgan had a promise, and that was to sail around the world, and why he named his boat American Promise. And I often say to people when they learn about our work is, what is your ocean promise, right? And so Rosalia Project, through our work with American Promise, has committed to cleaning and protecting the ocean. And we all have something that we can give and share to the sea and to our sailing community. And so I encourage all of us to think about that. And lastly, we are a volunteer-driven organization, and we are successful because people come and join us. Our expeditions are free. We just ask people to kind of come to us, get yourself to and from the boat, and we will kind of take care of the rest. We have week-long trips. So keep in touch with us, at Rosalia Project, both on Instagram and Facebook. We usually put our call out for crew in about February. So please keep in touch, and we'd love to encourage you all to come and join us. And thank you.
Thank you so much, Ashley.